How's everybody doing today? You see it, contingency planning? Good. Let's see. Give me a one in the chat if you can hear me. Let's see. Give me one in the chat if you can hear me. Appreciate you, casual economists. Glad you could join me. Regime. Let's get it. You see it. Let's get it. Talking about contingency planning. Hopefully, it won't be too long tonight. Salute to Larry. Glad you could join me. You know how we do it. If you got any questions or statements, put them in the chat. Let me go check on my YouTube. I'd be struggling on LinkedIn over there. So let's see what we got going on. Let's see. I think I'm going to. It's been a long week. I'm glad tomorrow's hump day. I don't know what's going on. Okay. Checking out my control room. See everybody's rolling. Check on LinkedIn real quick, then we'll get it going. Let's see. I'll be really struggling on LinkedIn if we gonna get it though. Let's see. I gotta get better on the LinkedIn side. Okay, I'm gonna join over there. See Larry looking forward to more knowledge. Bing, I appreciate you, Larry, over there on LinkedIn too. Let me see. Give me a thumbs up. Welcome. Let's get going. Let's get going. Larry speaking to everybody. So once again, we're gonna hit contingency planning. That's more of a physical thing too, right? DR is usually your computer stuff, disaster recovery, IT, contingency planning, and COOP, continuous operation, is usually people. So we're gonna talk about some large equipment I used to work with at the state, and how we were talking about doing contingencies there. And the weirdest thing I've done is I did a contingency plan for a candy company in Chicago. Why would a candy company need a contingency plan? The bank gave them $5 million, so they wanted, if something happened to their your plant, how you gonna pay back the bank $5 million? So that's one of the weirdest things I've done for a contingency plan, was for a candy company, and we'll talk a little bit about that at the end. So you'd be surprised how many a business needs a contingency plan. So when they reached out to me, I was doing a little Upwork. They were like, "Well, we owe the bank $5 million, and if something happened to our plant, they want to know how we're going to continue to pay our bills." So I thought that was interesting. So once again, this is just a standard Amazon architectural diagram. I always like doing those. We're doing out NIST 800-53. National NIST stands for National Institute of Standards and Technology. It's a non-regulatory agency of the United States Department of Commerce, which always kind of throw me off. It was put in by government guidelines and other publication. That government guideline was the Federal Information Security Modernization Act of 2014, aka FISMA, is to help with managing cost-effective programs to protect their information systems, right? Either if that's FBI, a lot of people know I do IRS work, CGIS is state police, so there's a lot of state and government agencies that are based on top of NIST, especially NIST 800-53. People know that's my favorite one. Shout out to NIST CS, FCIS. There's a lot of other ones, but once again, I do big systems, big things. So that's usually where I come in with the 853. So once again, if y'all got any questions, just drop them in the chat. I'll make sure I'll go over there and peek on LinkedIn. I'll be struggling though, struggle streaming. These are the 20 families that are based on the NIST 800-53R5. Tonight we're going to do contingency planning. You see it right there, CP. If you need to look at the other ones, you can check them out on a replay. We've done access control, awareness training, audit and accountability, assessment, authorization, and monitoring, configuration and management, and tonight we're doing contingency planning. So it should be short, nothing too big. A lot of times, most people working remote anyway now. So, and if you look at contingency planning, I'll cut this out of the NIST 800-53. You see it up there, develop a contingency plan. There's probably 4 or 5 plans you want to do, right? It's usually policy, procedures, and there's a few plans. Contingency is actually a plan. Develop a contingency plan for the system that identifies essential missions and business function, provides recovery objectives, restoration of property, address contingency roles, address maintaining essential mission, address eventual full system restoration, address the sharing and contingency information, and is reviewed and approved by, for us, it's usually the CISO and the CIO. Because a lot of times, and the president a lot of times, because if your building gets hit by a tornado or earthquake, if you're in the Cali or East West Coast, right, those usually have CEO and actually board implementation of what's going to happen, right? You want to distribute copies of the contingency plan. Now we usually just put them on SharePoint. When people take training, they download those plans. Coordinate contingency plan activities with incident handling activities, right? A lot of times if you have a cyber attack, a ransomware attack, or a hostage attack even, right? Those contingency plans come into effect. And it's weird, when I worked at the state, every year we had some kind of contingency. One year we had a fire. A guy went outside, smoked a cigarette, put it out on a building and dropped it in between, I guess, our fake brick and the real building. It caught on fire on asbestos and what we had in there. One year our AC went out, but it kept pumping water out because the AC wasn't getting cool because it had a leak. It actually flooded a whole floor, right? So that's when your contingency plan comes in effect. And 2 is, a lot of times it's not going to be the exact practice, but you will have another location identified, backup hardware, how long it's going to take you to get it. And we're going to touch on some of those perspectives. And that's why when you talk about contingency, a lot of times it's usually hardware, right? If you lost a building or you can't go into a building, or if the building catch on fire, what is your plan for that? Like I said, the candy company I was doing work for, once again, they got $5 million for the bank, and the bank wanted to see what's going to happen if your building or your plant, something happened to it, you could go into. How are you going to be able to pay them their money? Let's go and check to see if there was any questions in there. Here's all the families in the contingency planning. Usually I pick out like 5 do the top five or so. Don't go over all of them, but usually the number one is policies and procedure. Usually any -1 is going to be policies and procedure. Contingency plan, contingency training. So if we do a plan, we need to train people on what they need to do for the plan. Contingency plan testing. So part of the training is we're going to act like, okay, we couldn't get in this building. So how are we going to test to make sure the plan is accurate or, feasible actually? A lot of times too, as part of that is, which is old school now, we had tornado drills at the state, fire drills, right? All that fire stuff is plan testing and see what you would do. Alternate storage site, alternate processing site, telecommunication services, right? So if somebody cuts which this happened to us a couple of times when I was at the state, somebody was working outside and actually cut our telecommunication services. So what's our backup plan? All right. A lot of times, a lot of big state agency now, they have two different services coming in two different directions in the building, usually one in the front and one in the back. System backup, system recovery and reconstitution. So if you have a database and you roll over to the DR site, once your main system come back, how do you roll that data over? Long story short, we rolled over to a test. Then when we thought we rolled over back, we were doing production in the morning. All the data was still going to the test database. So reconstitution is how do you get that back to your main production site? Sometimes you think that sounds easy, but we always had a few issues doing that, right? Is the pointer going back? There's usually IDs on records, which is actually just a number that gets incremented. When we send it down to the test database into our backup area, the numbers didn't line up. So when we try to bring those records back, they were stepping on each other. They were saying duplicate records because of the IDs. So what does that reconstitution when you bring your data back up to your main production site? Alternate communication protocol, safe mode, and alternative security mechanism. Right, so those are I want to say 12, because I think we skipped number 5. The 12 security subfamilies in contingency planning. So when you do NIST, you do those 20 families. In those 20 families, you have a lot of subfamilies, right? So I think when we looked out at, shout out to Chris Whitlock, I think it was 1,024 checks when you're doing this 800-53, right? But I think it's one of the most comprehensive security compliances you can do out there, right? So that's one reason I'm a NIST 853 guy. And I've been doing it a very long time, so that's always interesting. Once again, if you have any questions, just put them in the chat. Let me check out on LinkedIn real quick. Let's see. So we'll look cool over there. Let's keep rolling. So CP1, once again, policies and procedure, develop, document, and disseminate. Organizationally defined. I usually work for the IRS, so we can say disseminate usually to the executive suite, the C-suite, organizational level, contingency planning policy, and you need to address the purpose, scope, role, responsibility. That's standard stuff in this. I keep hitting it. Contingency planning policy should address controls in the CP family that are implemented within system or organization. The risk management strategy is to implement factors to establish such policies and procedures. Policies and procedures contribute to the security and privacy assurance. Right. So once again, we're just gonna hit about 4 of these subfamilies. 2, the plan. Right. You got policy procedure, and for contingency planning, you have a plan. Develop a contingency plan for the systems that identify essential mission and business functions associated with contingency requirements, provides recovery objectives, restoration priorities, metrics, address contingency roles and responsibilities, assign individual contact information, address maintaining essential mission, business functions despite a system disruption, compromise, or failure. So the big deal in there is, and I think a lot of people miss out on this, especially small businesses, is identifies essential mission and business function. So it's called BIA, Business Impact Analysis. You need to go rank your business functions so you know in your contingency plan what is what is the priority of things you need to bring up. Shout out to Mike V. Glad you can join me. Shout out to Rondo Mondo. The big deal is I think a lot of companies, when you ask them, a couple things I usually ask them is, what's your classification of data? Then the other part of that is, what is your mission critical business functions? You need to rank those through your whole organization. All right. A lot of times you don't have to do all these metrics, is what are the 10 most important things you need to do? I worked for the state of Indiana Department of Revenue. Our number one thing was to collect taxes to fund the state of Indiana. That was number one. Right. Then stuff comes after that. So how do you do that? You need to be able to take care of incoming mail. Now a lot of it's automated, and we're gonna talk about back then, like 40% of it was mail. So you have to be able to open mail, get mail, scan mail, get checks, deposit checks in the bank to fund them, right? So you need to go through your organization and rank those business functions. And the thing, and I'm sure Mike can collaborate on this, is when I talk to the C-suite CIO, I'm gonna interview a couple of these guys. I know them, is they don't really give a shit about technology, right? So when you say collect state taxes, that went into a Oracle database, a SQL Server database. It was on an IIS. So when the Oracle database or IIS web server, whatever technology, when something's wrong with that or that goes down, I don't talk about the database going down. I talk about why we can't collect taxes because of certain technology, right? So your top 10 business functions are ran on top of technology. So when you talk to executives, they want to talk about money, how long it's going to take, right? Restoration priorities. How long can it be down? How quickly can it be up? RPO and RTO, return to operation, return to point operation. How much data can you lose in there? Right now, they got databases where you won't lose any information, a la AWS Aurora, but that's expensive as crap, right? So, what level of dollars do you want to spend, and how much data you want to lose, right? So, when you talk to executives, you're talking in not technology, business functions, monies, dollars, right? The governor had his, things he wanted us to do as an organization, right? He had his top 10. Right. So we rank those. So why would you rank those business functions? Your money's not infinite. You got to pick what you want to invest your time and money. So if this is number 50 and nobody cares about it, you're not going to put a lot of resources to it. And two is, a lot of times when you do DR and contingency planning, you can't do every function in your organization, right? So you want to do your top 10 or 20 because it's most important to your organization, the CIO, the president, the board of directors, even, right? So you need to rank those. So I'm gonna get off that soapbox. So a lot of people ask me that question though. Well, how do you know what to do, or how do you know where to start? I'm ranking the business function, business impact analysis, right? And a lot of times that's money, how long it's going to take, right? So the business is going to rank that, not you, right? It's not a technology thing, that's a business thing. So let's keep going. Like I said, I'm getting off my soapbox, but a lot of people ask me, how do I go about that? First thing is data classification. It's PIR, federal tax information, Fed data, right? Those government entities have requirements, legal requirements you have to do, right? A lot of times, if you collect state taxes and you do for a refund, if it takes longer than 7 days for us to get a refund, we're supposed to give you interest, right? So those are some things. Okay, number one is the IRS has a thing. Number two is people will call the governor if they're not getting their tax return. So then my boss is going to get a serious true story. We'll get a visit from the governor and his people, because the little old ladies aren't getting their tax return and they're at a big church with 10,000 members. The pastor will call the governor and the governor is going to come see you, right? So some of those things, that's why you rank those. So let's keep going. We'll tell some stories at the end, but yeah, I've been visited by a few people. Contingency training. Okay, we get all this documents and plans. So you got to train people. How do you train your cloud engineers? How do you train your executives? How do you train the people in charge of if you have to get another building? Are you um, doing a reciprocity with another business where you can come at night and do some work in their organization that's separate from you? Right. So you got to train people what's going to happen if that contingency happens. Once again, we're going to talk about a few at the end. Provide contingency training to the system users consistent with their assigned roles and responsibilities. Assuming contingency role responsibility when required by the system changes. Thereafter, review, update contingency training. So once again, you got to review it and keep it up to date. Plan testing. Test the contingency plan for the system using the following tests to determine the effectiveness of the plan and the readiness to execute the plan. Review the contingency plan test results and initiate corrective action if needed. All right. So when you plan the test and you kind of working it out on paper in a conference room, when you actually go test the plan, saying, okay, this building is closed and we're going to go to this other building. How is it going to work? Can people get in the building? We did that one time. People badges couldn't even get in the building, right? So, okay, if this happens, that's a badge access. So we propped the door open to let people in, but that wasn't secure, right? So we actually said, okay, if this happens, we could call a security guard to meet out there, then we could look at their badges, right, to be secure. But something as simple as, okay, we're gonna go to this building with 25 people. We didn't move their badges over. They can't even get in the building, right? Shout out to my man before the billions doing big things. Shout out to Evans. Shout out to my man Dr. Finesse on the grind doing big things. So yeah, so that's one thing that we'll talk about. Yeah, we had a test and we just had people go to we had a satellite office. So we had 25 people go to the other building for a test. Like if they couldn't do their work in this building, power outage, some weird earthquake or anything. We didn't move their badges over so they couldn't get in the building, right? But that's why you test the plan. Okay, now we know we need to let these people badge in over there. Let's have them already set up. Or we need to switch it over. Or there was security in there, so we need to let the security know there's an event, contingency event, so we need to let these people with this certain badge, because you had department, it had ID, and kind of what area you were working in. So simple stuff like this. That's why you got to test it, though. It sounded good, but they couldn't get in the building. So that's why you got to test it. Let's keep rolling. I just laugh because you be having good intentions, but until you testing it. Oh, alternate processing. Establish an alternate processing site, including necessary agreements, permits, and transfer resumptions for essential business mission and business functions within the organization. When primary processing is down, like we talked about, what are those mission and what are those business functions? If you don't rank those, you don't know what those are, right? Alternate processing sites are geographically distinct from primary sites and provide processing capabilities if primary processing is not available. So in the red, we're going to talk about a business process. So when I worked at the state, that's been a long time, 6 or 7. Back then, we had big machines when we got tax returns. We had a lot of people working 3 shifts. We had 40% paper and they were trying to get it down to 5. I think when I left, we were getting it around 10%, right? But we had these big machines, right? These were very expensive machines. So if something happened where they didn't work or the building collapsed or a tornado ripped them up, how will we collect processing and do these machines, right? So let's look at that quick video. PBO doing it on the fly. Let's see. We're going to run that. Let's do that. Look at this real quick so you can see how big the machine is. So we had something similar, not exactly to that one. Yep, there it is. Sure. So let's check this out real quick. It's super short. If anybody want to come by, drop the link so we can chop it up. And we'll look at a few more systems, but it's a big machine, so it open stuffed, open mail. We were doing probably 100,000 pieces of paper. It was a crazy amount. Let's switch it back. So yeah, so when you have a big machine and you doing work like that, doing work like that. So if you have whatever, we had a few of those. So if that machine went down or the building you could get in or the tornado hit it, what is our contingency plan? We had district offices that had portable of these scanners around the state, right? So they wasn't doing a volume, but people would come in so you would scan. So we figured out that we would take all the portable scanners, bring them to a location in town, a conference room. We would run 3 shifts and manually do this work for however long it would take us to get one of these machines. These machines are custom machine. It would at least take 45 days to get them. Tax season is only 30 days, right? So once again, there was a few people in the state of Indiana that had them. So reciprocity agreement was if we needed to run a shift at their location at night, we could do it, right? If they need to run theirs at night, we would do it, right? But then for us, right, we know we cybersecurity, you got tax information into a foreign building, right? So, okay, like how are we going to secure people's taxes? Right. So if somebody, came in there, so now you got to worry about physical security because they're not in our, what's up, Mike? Glad you could join. They're not in our location. Right. So from a contingency standpoint, that's the stuff you got to think about. Okay. If we get hit, we can get all the portable machines around the state, bring them to our central location, take all the mail that was coming in there, send them down, and we will run 3 shifts, just 24 hours straight, just to try to keep those up. Because you got to remember, in the state of Indiana, I haven't looked at in 10 years. If you were late with their tax return, I think it was 5 or 7 days, you have to pay them interest. That could be hundreds, millions of dollars, right? If we were down for 30 days, right? So now we got to figure out once again, what's the contingency plan and what's your action for that to be able to happen, right? So that's some of the things when you have CNC machines, manufacturing. We were looking at the port authorities. If they went down, right, with the automation, what is their contingency to keep it up, right? And as a GRC person, especially management and senior level, right, those are the things they want to know. And those are the things when your board of directors is going to ask you, what's your COOP plan, continuous operation plan? What's your contingency plan? What's your DR plan? What's your emergency medical plan if somebody got hurt, right? We're going to look at all the different plans in there. Let's see who's in there. I think my man showed up. What's up before the billions? You there before the billions? Oh, there you are. I hear you.
Hey, PBO, how you doing, man?
I'm doing all right. Just doing my late night with PBO, talking about contingency planning.
Yes, sir. Give me 1 second. Hold on.
All right. I'm going to chit chat till you come back. Yeah, I'm going to chit chat till you get back. But that's when you GRC or you management, Shout out to Dr. Finesse. Shout out to the GRC Mafia. They up in here. Shout out to Larry. Contingency, once again, I sit in those meetings. The CEO, the CIO, the CISO, they're going to ask you, what's our contingency plan? All right. If your cloud goes down, if your region goes down, shout out to Regine. If your availability zone goes down, what's your plan? Right. So a lot of times too is I get stuck on technology, but a lot of people have equipment, especially when you're talking about large equipment. Is this somebody in here? Okay.
Hey, PBO, I'm back.
I see you. What's up, Jupiter? Go ahead. Before the billions, let you chime in.
You hear me?
Yeah, I can. Jupiter, hold tight.
Yeah,
Hold tight. Yep.
Yeah. So PBO, I wanted to hop on right quick and hit on something I heard earlier today from one of my colleagues.
Mm-hmm.
We were discussing the worth of our roles and
Mm-hmm.
how a lot of companies are going from the cloud back to on-prem.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Not because like the cloud isn't working, but because of how expensive it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Real quick. There's a burgeoning role is to how to save money because a lot of people are configuring too many EC2s. They got stuff spinning up. They let developers like you spinning up too big databases for tests, right? So yeah, so people got to control those costs. Because one of the cool things about the cloud is you can spin up stuff, you can test it, you can do whatever you want, but that costs money. Go ahead, B2B. That costs money. Yep. So
I think we brought it up before is that a lot of these companies they're just doing victory laps. Mm-hmm. They're doing things just for proof of concept.
Mm-hmm.
Right, they're hiring people and then they don't have any work for them to do, and then now you're spending more money paying them, but now you also have the incurring cost of like the cloud tools and stuff like that. Yeah. So I've seen a lot of companies going back to like Hadoop, like the base technologies that a lot of these cloud technologies are based off of. But when you say like, oh yeah, you spin up all these virtual machines, you spin up all these like workers, or what do you call them, the worker nodes and stuff like that. That costs money. It also the type of industry that you're in also affects it, because the finance industry, for an example, you can't have payments just stop, right? You can't just take a break. Never. It needs to be like continuous 24/7. So if anything goes down, you're gonna be losing money.
Yep.
Even if you just keep it going, it costs you more money. Yep. In the millions of dollars for a lot of these large organizations.
And two, if you down too long, I don't think a bank could be closed more than 3 days.
Yeah.
So if you do, you're going to be fined from the government. You're going to get a hefty fine. So a lot of that stuff, that's what we talk about mission critical. Part of that mission critical is what federal requirements, so you don't get fined, or you need to be at, right? Some of that could be uptime. Some of that could be contingency. Like I said, we were looking at these mail sorting machines because if we didn't get tax returns turned around in 7 days for refunds, we have to pay interest, right? So that made that a mission critical function. So that's why we started talking about, okay, if this machine go out, or does somebody throw something, a breaker, and bust the machine up, right? It took like 45 days to get one. So what's going to be the plan if we're down for 45 days?
Yeah. And just to piggyback off the other gentleman, because I'm taking a corporate finance, like a strategic corporate finance, and you find out how these companies think on corporate, like if you ever want to do a business or just understand how corporate does their finance, especially with finances and accounting and stuff, because if one of them go down, it's because they all are hand in hand. That company is, boy, that's a bad day. Because I do right now, I do part-time IT consulting. Okay. So it's just like now it's just like I just go to sites and just repair their any other stuff like computers and stuff. And I just did a little CrowdStrike. First time doing it, resetting a CrowdStrike configuration. But yeah, especially the smaller business, like, yeah, like, and IT and just cyber itself is like, it's money now. I mean, it's money, but it's like that double-edged sword. How much are you willing to spend for just an IT or your cyber? Because and it all piggies back to your business what is it, your continuities or your
Coop. Shout out to my man the doctor, big discussion 76 technology. You see it on the screen. I go check him out, subscribe to his channel. Go ahead, go ahead. My fault, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, but that's pretty much I was landing my plane on, is just like, and I always tell businesses of like, if you're starting a business, like how big do you expect on growing? Is it just because this all becomes advantageous, and what do you want to secure? What's you're going to triage? What's your business continuity plan? So
Yeah.
it's a lot.
The thing I've getting, a lot of people ask me, Doctor, go ahead and put your channel in there so people can subscribe to it. Put yours in there too, B2B. But yeah, and that's what Doctor said right there. PPO. We're doing our annual COOP training at the federal job, right? So every year we would say, okay, if this building went down or this database went down or if this machine blew up, right? What are we going to be able to do? And a lot of times now, board of directors and the C-suite are asking you those questions because they have federal requirements or state requirements. So once again, what is that going to look like? So go ahead.
Another thing too is like if they get a ransomware or something like that, like have you guys do any backups of your files? Have either a lot of these companies, like I said, and I understand it, they may not have the allocated budget, to have a hot or cold site just to get running because that stuff costs money. But I always say, if you do backups, and I'm going a little bit of the double-edged sword with the cloud too, even though that's money. If you have do your backups at least. I would say this: if anything goes down at your facility or whatever, at least if you have the means to work from home or send your employees to go work from home, you have those files on hand at a server or whatever, or if you have a ransom or breach.
Yeah. 100%. And once again, when you do NIST 800-53, that's one of the questions that when you do we keep talking about this, when you do your mission critical business functions, part of that mission is to tell you RTO, how long can they be down? RPO, point objective, how much data can you lose, right? So that's going to tell you how often you need to do your backups, where you need to store them. And I'm old school. A lot of people keep their backups online. I want to put mine somewhere off-site because if a hacker gets there and they get on your network, a lot of times they can get to your backup. A finance small company thought they were smart. The hacker gave them ransomware and deleted their backups, right? So you got to make sure you understand what that means when you do it. So check out two of my favorite people. Go subscribe to my man, Big Discussion 76 Technologies. I always showing PhDs love. I wanted to be a PhD, so I always give my man a shot. And shout out to my young guy, wish I could grow hair, B2B. Go check him out, doing big things. He hit him with the crying face, talking about he lost his house and got 85,000 hits on it. I'm jealous, but I seen putting in good work out there. So real quick, let's jump into one of the other new things where it's quickly falling over is client service centers where people call your house. Call centers. Now a lot of that stuff is all electronic. Used to be you had a building, you go to it. Like my man on the right. Now people just give you a laptop and you at home and you answer people's calls. You doing help desk calls, calling them if you ain't paying them, calling them if they didn't make their car payment. A lot of people doing that. Shout out to my daughter-in-law. She just got a job working from remotely. They gave her that setup, a laptop. And two, when you log in there, they got queues. Shout out to AWS Connect. We're going to do a video on there. You can just spin up a call center on your laptop, queue the calls up, spin them out to different people. Because during COVID, we was sending people home with laptops and we just queued them up like that. So now it's like, why would you ever own, you see the new day, why would you ever own real estate? You can just spin people up. And those laptops are cheap. You can get a $150 VDI from AWS spin up the call center. They're just connected to the cloud doing all the work. And if they quit, just tell them to keep the $150 cube and keep it rolling. What's your thoughts on that, Jupiter?
You know what? I'm a big fan of working from home. I'm like, I mean, if you have to go on site, but I'm a big fan of working.
Oh, I ain't never going back in. Go ahead.
And that's what that's in a lot of these jobs. Like I had one hit me up on LinkedIn. Everything's on site, and I'm like, look, now if I'm doing GCRC or any type of technical, now if it's pen testing, then yeah, we'll have to go on site. Or if it's depending on the circumstance of the rules of engagement. But if I'm doing GCRC, I ain't got to be on site. I could just be a face on Skype or Teams and be like, hey, look, hey, look, this is what you need right here, this, and but that's just my take.
No, I ain't never going. What's your thoughts on that, B2B? Chime in on that.
Yeah, man, I know a lot of people who are doing that kind of work from home, like, answering the customer support calls, like even the example that you gave, people didn't pay like their car note. I know somebody who literally works for, like one of those car companies that does that, works remote. And then the thing about that type of working remote is that it's a little bit more work, I should say. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, like I can do coding and I work from home. I can kind of like go off and, run an errand right quick.
Yeah.
But like if you do like that customer support type of working from home, it's like, okay, oh, you haven't jiggled your microphone, not your microphone, but your mouse in 10 minutes or something like that. We're gonna so we gotta check in on you.
We're gonna be on your ass. Two, a lot of times when we did it, you have so many calls you got to go through a day. So if you don't, we're gonna have to figure out what's going on. You probably gonna get fired. So yeah, that's the good and bad thing about it, because that's kind of the I don't want to say low level, but we running you like you running a car line manufacturing. You get a call, you shouldn't be on there. You shouldn't be chit chat. You need to do about a couple, 100 calls a day, man. You want you in and out, right? So that's the good and the bad part about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then it also doesn't pay it that well.
No,
but it does make up for the fact that you don't have to pay for commute time, or you don't have to pay for like the maintenance of your car and stuff like that. It's like I think it was like $7,000 that you could save per year just by not going into the office. So it's a good amount of savings.
It's more than that, but you're right. The other part of that is the wear and tear on your car. I think I drove, because I'm a hermit. I'm old. I think I drove 4,000 miles last year. I never left the house. So
that's what I'm talking about. Because I go to sites and stuff. So they be giving me tasks, and I kind of look at where it's at. Be like, yo, how far is this? One hit task had me going an hour and a half. I'm like, oh no. So I just did the day. I had to go. Well, I knew where this location was at because I go there 1 week in a month. For my little military stuff. So I was like, okay, I'll go out there. But the thing is, the only sweet part is I get so when I leave the house, they pay me. When I leave the house, they're coming back. I was like, not too many jobs I know do that, because they pay you as soon as you get out the house. Like you leave to go to that site, your pay starts, and then when you come back, that's when your pay ends. So that's the only good thing about that right there. But yeah, wear and tear on your car and sitting in that traffic, boy. I was like, man, that's the reason why I don't miss this stuff going into an office.
Yeah. But now I'm actually, my opinion on it kind of changes a little bit now, because I'm thinking I like hybrid more, because if people want to go into the office, they can. If they don't want to go to the office, you have some days that you don't have to. So that's the only thing I can kind of see, because especially when you're a new person trying to onboard, it's extremely difficult.
Yeah, you trying to go ahead. You trying to climb a corporate ladder, man. I ain't trying to meet nobody. Keep going, B2B.
No, I ain't calling those days over. Right?
Yeah, B2B.
I'm just using the job as just a paycheck while I got other stuff going on.
Yeah, go ahead, B2B. Yeah, go ahead and chime in on that. That's a young man's game.
Yeah, I'm early career, so
yeah.
It's kind of like, you go in there like, okay, everybody is working from home, and they may be in a different time zone. Like all my people are in a completely different time zone. Everybody in India,
I hate that. I've been there before.
So
I be
you're like,
looking at
okay, yeah,
1 a.m.
you're right. So nobody is in your area, and then you're like, okay, well, hey, I'm trying to learn how to do something or get a new task and stuff like that. It's kind of a little bit more difficult to get started, right? Or like to get acclimated to the company when you have only remote.
Yeah, I think you're right, but I think too is because I work for companies that was only remote, so we had our standard stand up where everybody would show up, so you would get your task, and on your daily task. So I think they have some things, to help you do that onboarding. And I'm old, so I just kind of force myself in there. This is what I need, who I need to talk to. Let's get together on this Teams meeting real quick. Here's my, I'm old. Here's the agenda, and I just drive it, right? Hold on real quick. Let me go through these quick couple documents. So when you're doing a contingency plan, especially at the federal level, there's a lot of documentation. So we're just gonna end it on there. Your COOP, once again, I work for the Department of Revenue for the state of Indiana. Homeland Security would come in and we do a contingency test with them. Why is that? Because if every Department of Revenue was hit at the same time, they believe that was a nation state and we're under attack from China or India. So the Department of Homeland wanted you to let them know if you were having an incident or a security event. BCP addresses sustaining mission and business. CIP is a set of policies and procedures to serve to protect and recover. DRP refers to information system focused plans designed to restore. ISCP provides recovery and resumption procedures for a each system ISC plan, and OEP provides direction for facility occupants to follow an event of emergency such as health, tornado, or earthquake. So one reason I like doing 800-53, they got a lot of paperwork where you can make a lot of money. So I help companies do all this documentation. And two is, once again, if you go into, I didn't show it, if you go into the NIST 800-53, a lot of times they have templates for these documents. I think if you go to NIST 861, I need to double check that they have templates for a lot of these documents. So once again, my man, the good doctor down there, said they were doing their COOP plan for their company. Let me find that. Yep. So I worked for the DOD years ago. Every year we would do our federal COOP plan. The only part about that is I had to do the training and the documentation for the training, which sucked. But no, once again, I learned that how to do that. So I help people do that. So once again, if you can, go subscribe to my man, the good doctor, and my young man right there, Before the Billions. Chime in on any of that B2B if you want to.
Yeah, man. Really talking about like the business aspect of things. I know that, what was it? The BCP, the business processes. It went off the screen. But yeah, so talking about like business processes, and then it can vary depending. Like I think we made a point about how it varies depending on the industry that you're in. Because I've worked in fintech before. I've worked in the HR space, and then the agricultural supply chain space, and everybody does things completely different.
100%.
Because some companies I work for, they'll have everything is cloud, and they'll have multiple different like cloud platforms, and then some like especially like let's say fintech space or even in the healthcare space, they can't use certain technologies because of the requirements that they have for like their compliance. Right, like they were saying that they told me in the interview, they said, oh yeah, we got rid of Google. We couldn't use them. We couldn't use Azure. They couldn't use a whole bunch of different cloud platforms. They had to use like Snowflake as an example.
Snowflake crappy, but go ahead. Yeah.
But that's what they said. They said they had to use Snowflake, and it hit all the requirements for how they wanted to compute their jobs and stuff like that. So, like when I look at that, I was like, okay, that's the differences between business processes when it comes to like compliance, especially what was this called? The NIST 800
53. Yep.
dash 53.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably like everybody has to follow like certain security requirements as well.
Yep.
Like I remember this is like the funniest thing I noticed is that even doing some simple tasks can be more difficult at certain companies.
Yep. 100%.
Like I was in at one of my previous companies. I had like admin access to do everything in the virtual machine, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
could log in my like Linux virtual machine,
Mm-hmm.
and I could like go into different like directories and go into um like different virtual machine boxes and stuff like that. Then at a different company, they're like, wait a second, I'm sure security already told you that you can't go through and look at other people's directories. I'm
Yep.
like, what are you talking about? Like show me, show me the error message or whatever. It's in a different directory, but I should be able to look at it. They were like, nope,
Mm-hmm.
we're gonna report this. I was like, wait a second.
Every
Like,
company, well, if you've ever been in the military, military, I would just say, well, especially the army, every command has their own SOP,
yeah.
their own. They have their own thing. Every company has their own way to. Yes, they still. I look at the NIST and all the. It's a guideline that they follow, but they can always tweak and redefine it.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mhm.
that's how they do it. So as long as they follow it, as long as they are following those standard criterias, they can always tweak and redefine it. It's just as long as they're in that fine line margin. But yeah,
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
you said, each company, like you said, handles security a little different. And two is the more mature and the higher the data classification, the tighter security is going to be.
Yep. And I wonder what happens if like if you go in, like if they report you or something like that for using like certain Linux commands. You're like, oh, okay. Let me just CD into this, and then
You wouldn't be
then
able to
it's a
do it. You wouldn't be. Where I worked at, what we do is called sudo. So it's
yeah.
a list of commands you could do. So if those commands aren't in there, you couldn't do them.
yeah,
So you
Mm-hmm.
have to sudo, which is switch to super user to do them. And that's because the essay of that system, because I was a web admin, so there's like 20 commands I could do. Like I
Mm-hmm.
could tar, switch directories, go to some stuff, but there's a lot of stuff. I couldn't drop a disk, right? I couldn't format a disk, right? But so if you're at a high level secure site, there's a sudo list, and they check it like
yeah.
every quarter too to say, okay, your job says this. These are the commands. Does those commands match the levels he's doing? But two
And
is it's some smaller things like Jupiter said. They so small, we ain't got enough people to break it up at that level. So even though you're a web admin, you still formatting disks, giving people LPARs. So it depends on the company. Like you said, there's regulation. Chime in on that, Jupiter. What you got?
yeah, and just with the pseudo one, that's thinking back to my CTFs. Is if you ever do hack the box, because when they do pseudo lists, I hope they do an audit of like, especially in Linux, when you do your
Yeah.
pseudo list, so like because you see that command path, what you can do, or if you ever go to GTO biz, see how you can bypass it. But yeah, but like I said, every company has like their own tweaking standard, and I'm like, yeah, well, if you had admin, you should only had admin for that specific role and stuff. I could speak for Raytheon when I used to work at Raytheon. Especially in the SAP programs. Yeah, like with special aspects programs, like yeah, the tighter the need to know and the vetting, and then this restriction and security of the information and all that stuff. Yeah, it got tighter. It,
And when we give you sudo, especially on a Linux, Amazon, or Red Hat, since that's a privileged user, we log everything you do. As soon as you
yeah.
switch over that user, we log in everything on your
Oh
name.
yeah, yeah, yep.
So,
And
so, so if something happened or you do something on that day, we got every record. Two, we got scripts out there. Okay, he's a
yeah,
web admin and data engineer. Why are you over there formatting disks? That looks suspicious. Hold on, let me read Larry's thing. He said, just went through the national coup in math, mission essential function exercise, Eagle Horizon for the federal government. The commissioner assistant commissioner had to report it to our alternate site and all that stuff. So yeah, well, that's what we used to do at DLD. When I go to smaller companies, a lot of time I talk about it. The cool thing now on the alternate site is you at home, right? So you're remote working. So that's how we could do it. So quick question for before the billions, right there. You see it on your screen. So before the billions, how were you able to have access to view those directories if you don't have an account, don't have those permissions? I think his account had those permissions, but they said he shouldn't do it. Go ahead and chime in on that.
Well, so essentially what happened was they had. You ever heard of Talend before? It is a tool in order for you to run ETL pipelines.
I've heard of it. I've never used it.
Yeah, so I'm trying to like explain it in like layman's terms and stuff. So, but essentially, there was a software that runs all of our processes, all our code, and there was an error message. And I was like, okay, let me just look into the error message. I saw that it was an error message, something wrong with a file in this directory, but it didn't give like the exact reason why it failed. So I just wanted to check. So I copied it, and then I said, okay, well, I have the path to the directory. I logged into my account for the in the virtual machine, and then pasted that same directory. But the thing is that the directory was underneath the privileged account, right? It was the service account. That's what it was. So it wasn't under my account. It was under the service account. And I used my account to log in and see something that was in a higher user.
Did you see it?
No, I still didn't see it. You know, what I had to do was I had to go around and log in to that service account to be able to see what actually was wrong with that file.
So yeah, where I'm from, you wouldn't have the service account. But I hear what you say. So that's the thing too, is because the service account run. Usually we use I can't even think of the term in Windows where it generates a new password every day. So
yeah.
What is that? I can't even think. But yeah, so a lot of times only certain people get the service account. So what we do is, you're a developer. We know you need those logs, and those logs don't have any PII or high level. We would just copy them somewhere where you could view them, right? Because we know you need to see them for your job. So that's kind of how you communicate. Okay. 2 is in our log, and we have privileged logs and kind of logs for developers, so they can debug stuff and get those, especially in tests, and So,
yeah, man, it was interesting. I was like, okay, I'm trying to troubleshoot, and then I'm looking through it. I just get this message saying, "Oh, you can't use this command. It's going to be reported." I'm like, wait a second now.
Yeah.
so
yeah, but and I tell sometimes you can be so secure, can't nobody do their damn job. So right, you got to try to figure out this middle ground. Let me play this quick video real quick. Just talking about that call center. Everybody know I'm an AWS guy, so it's super quick. It's under a minute. Talking about AWS, and I think Friedman was using this. I need to reach out to him.
How can you ensure you're delivering instant, personalized, and effective customer service, no matter the communication channel? Amazon Connect empowers you to resolve customer issues quickly across the channels they prefer. Using AI-powered automation and generative AI, you will better know and understand your customers while expediting consistent responses across chatbot and agent-assisted touchpoints, ultimately delivering a more convenient and satisfying experience. Not only can you do this when they reach out for assistance, you can also proactively engage and serve your customers' needs at scale with relevant information and next steps. Improve your customers' satisfaction across channels today with Amazon Connect.
So that's Amazon's version of a call center. You can spin it up. Shout out to I think it was Freeman Journal. We were chopping it up about that one day. Once again, you can just spin it up. You don't need a building. You don't need anything, right? So those are it. This is kind of what our main thing was today. Make sure that's showing up. Those are the contingency things when we went over. Okay, shout out my man Mike. Said that makes sense. Yep, shout out to my man Jupiter. Got some fellow vets in there. So So those are the contingency plans we talked about. I usually pull out 5 of them. I don't want to bore y'all, but those are the top one: policies and procedures, contingency planning, training, planning and testing, alternate storage site, alternate processing site. The cool thing now with the alternate processing site, a lot of that's in the cloud. A lot of people want to go multi-cloud. AWS very rarely goes down. A region might goes down, but you can go spin up from the east to west coast, right? So your alternate processing site can be in the cloud. Your alternate storage site, unless you are manufacturing stuff, can be in the cloud, right? Your telecommunication. We just looked at the call center software, so really all that could be in the cloud, right? And you can spin that up. You can go multi-cloud if you're really worried, right? So if AWS goes down, you can spin up to Azure. Azure, most people running their teams in their Office 365. If that went down, you can do the AWS Connect, right? So a lot of times that's where the process, but B2B, one of his first questions he brought up is, you got to make sure you understand what that stuff costs. People spending up stuff, then they getting these bills and they're like shocked by all these bills, right? System backup, and that's what my man Jupiter said. If you hit by ransomware, you got to make sure your system backups. Then putting down your backups, recovery and reconstitution. When you delete the ransomware, delete your database, you got to install it from your backup. That's your recovery and constitution. Alternate communication protocols. If you couldn't use Teams, what are you using? Gmail? Are you using? We could use Restream. There's a lot of, but AWS, you can spin up your own call center, right? Safe phone, alternate security mechanisms, right? So if your main security is down, how else are you securing those sites? So B2B just not randomly walking in and looking at logs he's not supposed to look at. Now chime in on that, B2B.
And a lot of times your stakeholders, if you have a partner company and all that stuff, they gonna want to know, hey, yo, what's your contingency, what's your backup, what's your plan A, B, C, D, and E, F, G, and all that stuff. Especially if you're like merging with other companies and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, from third party, I do a lot of third party assessments.
And your insurance company too.
So the questions a lot of times on a third party assessment is, what's your DR plan? What's your contingency plan? What's your COOP plan? If your site went down, how are we going to continue to do business? All right. Do you got an alternate processing site? A lot of times they're in the cloud running a availability zone, which is multiple data centers in one region of the United States. Right. So a lot of times that stuff is covered off the bat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. I think that's something I ran into a few times because I used to work in the information security advisory.
Mm-hmm.
And then my old company, they used to buy up everything. Like buy up a whole bunch of different companies.
Mm-hmm.
And then they said they're always taking on more and more risk the more companies that they acquire.
Yeah, because it takes forever. I worked for Fortune 500 insurance companies, man. They would buy some every quarter, man. So now we trying to drop ship mainframes to our data center. That's before the cloud. So we pay people mainframes, putting it in the truck on Friday, having it hooked up in Indiana on a Monday. You calling Pennsylvania. Now you calling Indiana, but we had to have that stuff up running. So now too is, what is their security? Does it mesh with our security? What's our integration standpoint? Right. So all of this stuff comes into play.
And a lot of times, that's the first time you ever tell me that. I'm like, now you wonder, like, okay, well, aren't you guys going to do a risk assessment? Aren't you going to vet these, who's been working on it, who's the system admins and all that stuff? How are their practices like? Are you going to do an audit? Like, come on now. You just leaving it out there to win. Shoot, come on, for anything to happen.
They getting a little better, but back in the 2000s, as long as they thought it was profitable, IT have figured out we don't give a shit. We're gonna drop ship. So we were like, what are you doing? It's like now they're doing a little better about, okay, what are they running compared to in the old days? They're profitable, their margins are better than ours. Buy them, we'll figure it out, man. That's why we pay IT, make it work.
And PBO, I don't know if we brought this up before, but I was talking about how, like, when we're coding and stuff, we may use different libraries and not know where they came from. We just like, oh, okay, we need to like get this problem solved. I see a library uses this.
I'm blocking it. Go ahead. Pete.
Right.
I'm blocking it. Go ahead.
Some companies block it, some companies don't, man. It's it just runs.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I think people are getting better about that now because they know. Because I used to argue with guys. I'm like, dude, that's 3 dudes in the garage, man. Because you can look them up sometime how to get up. I'm like, dude, this is 2 dudes, man. What are you talking about, man? We about to put that in the $34 billion tax system. Are you crazy? Because if it goes left, the governor's coming to see you, man. So I think people get, but you're right though. So one of that thing is vetting it, making sure you have support, right? Even open source, a lot of times they make their money by selling support. So that's one thing I say is it a big, even if it's open source, is it Spring? Is it Red Hat? There's a lot of big open source things, and who's supporting that if it goes left?
And it's piggybacking off of open source. Like I said, now in the age of information or intelligence, I'll put it like this, anybody can do the digging and OSET. It's just you just got to have that mind and know what to look for and just remember the process. Yeah, they can know your company's infrastructure, layout, and your hierarchy. What systems you using with it, cloud and all that stuff. And I'm like you always want to. I always say like this: look, always look at it from your adversary. What is he doing? Because he could probably have all your company, what he wants to exploit on a wall and how he wants to exploit it. So, that's just my take.
Yeah. So I mean, and that's part of training and having a good communication with the developer. Because I just tell them if it gets hacked and that's your module and you downloaded that without that getting vetted, you're gonna be fired quickly, right? So we're pretty good about checking those, scanning for those, figuring out, and it's getting a lot easier to scan for stuff to figure out what's inside applications. In the old days, you just kind of trust people. They could tar it up or web it up or compile it up, and you didn't know where it's got. Now it's a little better where you can scan stuff. There's a lot of scanners that kind of let you know what's inside applications now. So that actually helps a lot better. A lot of times we try to tell them, stay inside, especially Java stuff, Spring, hibernate the big stuff. A lot of times if you using Microsoft stuff, Microsoft's going to be responsible for it. So Microsoft's got a ton of compliance stuff. And even though I'm not a huge fan of Microsoft, they understand that government nomenclature. They understand security scans. So a lot of stuff, and they're going to back it, right? If you're using Microsoft tools.
And add the SCAP scans, like your SCAP scans, in case you want to put those new freaking any type of workstation or device on your infrastructure and so I always recommend that.
Oh yeah. Until we always use government equipment, so we're just not letting you use any willy-nilly equipment. And on those, a lot of times we're only gonna let you install software we recommend. Now developers, because they want to try stuff, so a lot of times we give them a little more free reign than the average person. So there's got to be a trust factor between developers and security on that.
Yeah, and then always got to have that memorandum. If you know that application or software has some bug in it, just say make sure you have it in writing or that paper trail. Like, look, you accept this risk. And just make sure it's tucked away in a file.
No, that's true. We usually, MOU, especially when we dealing with other agencies and other organizations and what that should look like. So let's put your last couple questions in there. We're gonna wrap it on up. PBO running out of gas.
Yeah, I'm about to drop off, man. But I
appreciate you, Jupiter.
Yeah, I think you got a podcast tomorrow, don't you?
Yeah, I do. Check me out at 6 p.m. We're doing data centers using nuclear power. That's kind of interesting to me. I'm kind of scared of nuclear power. Shout out to my man, Struggle Security's posted join. He used to work actually in a nuclear power plant. So that's kind of more his. So we're going to do something joint. I appreciate you, Jupiter.
All right. Good evening.
Thanks, man. Have a good
nice
night.
to meet you, Jupiter. Yeah, PBO. Just wanted to say, man, another great live stream as always.
I appreciate it.
When it comes to these big businesses, man, they're spending a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
They're running into some issues when it comes to like compliance and buying up these other smaller companies.
Yeah.
And I think that what's going to happen is a huge push for people to go back to on-prem. for in some capacity, right?
No, I agree with that. I think the reason is those big companies on real estate, but we could do a separate podcast on it. They bought a ton of real estate because they got tax abatements. So until they get that real estate kind of sold off of what they're going to do with it, because if we gave you tax abatements and you don't have people working in our downtown office, you got to give our tax money back, and that's like hundreds of millions of dollars. So I think a lot of those big companies for that. I think in the next 20 years when their real estate gets paid off, and I think the boomers too, because at my last job when I was on site, they want you to be on site because I think MBA trained, that's how they understand and manage people. I think people struggle to manage people remotely.
Yeah, and I can see that.
Paradigm. Yeah, I think that's a new paradigm. I think the boomers and X like me, I got an MBA. They just train you on, rah, touch them, meeting face to face. They didn't really talk about using technology for remote work. I think that's a different management style. So
yeah, and I can kind of see how it can be a little bit more difficult because just trying to even do interviews remotely, it can be done, but I noticed that it leads to you getting less opportunity because they can be a little bit more rude with you over, Zoom or over Teams, as opposed to like in person where it's like, okay, you're here right in my face.
yeah,
They can kind of, it's not like an intimidation thing, but it's more like that they're going to show you a little bit more respect because you're right here. Right. I'm not gonna pull out my phone during the interview. But if you're on the call, it's just my computer and they may pull out their phone. Even, like just look away, be zoned out and stuff like that. But
I have people not even cut their camera on, man, in senior
yeah,
interviews. It drives my attorney. She think that's the rudest thing. For me, it's kind of like whatever. But
right.
yeah, but
But
it is definitely a different environment, a different vibe, a different aura, different ways you can communicate. But two, I think that's something we need to talk about is ways to overcome that, because I think interviewing in person is different than getting interviewed remotely online like we're talking now, right? So how can you connect? How can you joke? How can you, and then like you said, it's different when you're face to face, right? So
yeah, it's kind of like in the best example I can think of. I remember I was trying to help somebody. They were trying to run a not a webinar. They were trying to run a session teaching people about financial literacy. And I was like, well, is it possible that the person can be remote because they don't live in Atlanta? And they said, well, we find that our participants aren't engaged when they have like an online thing or something, like why drive somewhere to come sit in a room to watch somebody on the screen? And it kind of reminds me of when you have these conferences, they charge you to watch the conference on your phone. Now, why am I paying $99 to watch some videos, of random things? You know what I mean? From a
yeah.
conference that I'm not actually there. I don't gain the experience.
For me, and I think you're right, a lot of times for me, I will, because they're free. AWS, they have their senior people talking about certain stuff. In the old days, it was hard to get that information. Now, AWS, Azure, they got their own YouTube channel. So a lot of that stuff you can get, but I agree. There's something about in person and connecting with someone when you go to an event.
Mm-hmm.
Shout out to Aiken. Well, I was going to ask you something. Oh, just real quick for my man, Doctor. I'm sure he cut out because he was doing some stuff tomorrow. And he asked me a question. I actually referenced you. If he did a 10-hour event and we got 30 people on there, you think YouTube would accept those hours?
10 hours, yes.
So, okay. What you think is the cap?
11.
Okay. Because I know you said they didn't, you did 30 and they didn't take your 30. So
Right. They ain't take it at all.
So yeah, so if you think I might do a watch party and I was gonna reach out to him. So if we do 10 hours, I was gonna get you, Struggle, Keep It Techie, Struggle Security, Tech G. We all like the doctor. Just go and kind of support him in the watch party here. We don't really have to be there. Just have our phones watch and try to get him monetized.
Yeah,
So
man. Just let me know.
So you think 11 hours? We do 11 hours about 6 or 7 times, probably get him over the hump.
Yeah, man. That will help. Because as long as it's under 12 hours, you should be good.
Okay. So I'm gonna try to get 10 or 15. And he's got some other science people. So if we can get 30 people at 10 hours, that's 300 hours, man.
Mm-hmm.
Then after that, you get another probably 10% replay of people, because it's gonna scroll down everybody's timeline, so other people gonna watch it.
Yeah, man. As I would say, because is the watch party like videos of himself, like talking about things?
No, we was just gonna go live, kind of like you did, because I ran your channel. I don't know if you remember, I ran your channel for 2-3 hours. Just go 10 hours straight. I can run it, you can run it, and people just watch. The deal is to try to get like hopefully 50 people watch it. We go 10 hours, that'll be 500 with the replay. You do 500 like 6 or 7 times, you have 4,000 easy.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So because I know you did the 30. I was like, well, B2B said the 30 didn't quite work.
Right. So I got a few followers from it. I got a few subscribers from it, but I didn't actually gain the hours towards monetization. Yeah.
Okay. That's cool. I just want to check because I know you had the insight because you were doing it. Because I was like, I did mine the hard way. I just think I went once I got my following up in it took me about 4 months. I was getting like 30 people and I would just go like 3 times a week for like 2 hours. So I grinded out the hard way. But he goes live a lot. I think we just need to just go support him, get a little watch party. I get the tech bros and he get the science, and he's got some finance people. So I think if we all join, just focus on one channel for him and just kind of get him to monitor. Because when I first came, I thought the subscriber was going to be I start calculating at 4,000 hours. I was like, oh my God, that's because I think I calculated you have to do 11 hours for a year to get 4,000. It was something crazy like that. Yeah. I was like, no wonder only I think he said 4% of people on YouTube is monetized. It's not a big number.
Yep. And then they keep checking back after you get monetized to see, can we demonetize you?
Yeah, right? I'm mad at you. You should have let me know because I got demonetized for what you got demonetized for.
Yeah, I got demonetized. Like one of my videos got demonetized. I was like, man, why is it getting demonetized? It's because somebody put in a false copyright claim.
Oh, really?
That's what recently. Okay. I was like, wait a second. And I looked it up, and the guy said, yeah, it happens all the time. Somebody has it automatically set up to set up a false copyright claim.
That's crazy because you ain't like you huge, so why are people picking on you? That's my thing. It's not like you're huge. So
this is just anybody who plays like their music. The music would be like copyright free music, and then it still get a copyright claim. I'm like, what does this mean? Like,
that shout out to. He said that's an awesome idea. That's B2B idea. I shouldn't call him a kid. He a grown man. I was telling the kids come up with that. Because I remember you went 30 hours, man. It was me, you, I think, Casual Economist. You had a nice little team. So I just dropped in and supported you one day.
Yeah, man.
Then I remember man, dozed off and I ran the channel for a couple hours for you. Go ahead.
PPO, when we first met, man, I was 26. Now I'm 29. About to be 30.
Congratulations, man. I just laughed, man. My son's still older than you, but I always lie. But I tell people, man, I learned a lot from the young guys. I was like, man, that's a good idea about B2B. I was like, I ain't doing that's just too rough. 30 hours straight.
Yeah. Oh my God, that was something crazy. Man, and then I did it all on a laptop. I ain't even have a PC yet.
I remember, man. Like I said, I ran it for like 4 hours. I don't know if you remember. You dozed off. I forgot who. I think it was me, Max the Million. We started talking tech while you took a nap. I was like, I can do it. But nah,
I was done for. I was done for, man.
Yeah, I got your back, man. I got your back. I had your back. But yeah, we're gonna get that together for my man, the PhD. We love the doctor, so we're gonna do it. Put your last questions there. We're gonna wrap it up. What's your closing arguments? What's your closing statement, B2B? Real quick, we could check me out. We're talking about nuclear power and the data centers. I was pleasantly surprised that we don't have enough power to do AI. That's why they go into nuclear power plants for Google, AWS, and somebody else. And I guess Struggle Security says it's old technology because it takes too long to get certified for the new nuclear. I guess they got portable stuff. He said we can't use that yet because it hasn't been certified by the government. It takes like 5 years, which makes sense. You don't want nothing to blow up on nuclear like it. So I was surprised that we don't have enough power really to do AI. It just takes up so much power. So that's why they really go into nuclear, because it just takes up a lot of power.
Yeah, and nobody wants rolling power. Like nobody wants their power to go out so somebody can run an AI query or right. Like they want to, run a prompt in Chat GPT. You don't want your power to go out for that.
And the other thing is, before I let you finish, is we got 3,000 data centers in the United States. I didn't know it was that many. If you'd have asked me off the top, I'd have said 500, 400. We got 3,000 data centers and building bigger ones every day.
Yeah, I believe it. Google has a lot of data centers. AWS does too. And AWS, aren't they like one of the largest real estate portfolios? Even up there with like McDonald's.
I think they do. I need to dig into that. I think they do with the data centers, because they got bigger ones and smaller ones. They got local ones and stuff they run inside big metropolitans, so you can cut down your response time to milliseconds. So you can go down to your local Verizon, inside there they got AWS servers. So you connect there first before you go back to the big data center. So
exactly, man. Well, people, I ain't want to hold you up all night. Not yet, man. Not until we do the 11-hour live stream.
Yeah, that's not for me. I'm gonna show up, but I might be napping like you. Shout out to, we gonna support my man. I'm gonna reach out to him. I want to get your input on that. Go ahead. So
yeah, man. But yeah, people, I appreciate you having me up here, man. I believe that I learned some more, just specifically about these business processes. Just going through this, and I appreciate you for having this discussion, man.
I appreciate it. I think I'm gonna do a course with Dr. Ozier. He's one of the bigger GRCs people. He has a GRC academy, so we're discussing me doing a course inside of his academy. So I gotta get some energy on, but I appreciate you too. And once again, the old guy learning from the young guy. Once again, that's his idea with the watch party. He actually did it with 30 hours. It didn't quite work out, but he actually initiated. He did what we would call he did a contingency plan testing. He did it. It didn't quite work out. We had to do a post-mortem. Now we got to cut it down to 12 hours. So that'll be accepted. So you got to test it and learn from your mistakes. So appreciate B2B for joining. I'm out.